In this video, we're going to be talking about coordinate grids. By the end of the video, you are going to be able to locate ordered pairs, as well as identify which quadrant those ordered pairs are located. Okay, so you have a sheet of paper that looks like this. I want you to take it and fold it to two sides, so this side over here and this side over here. Fold them in towards the middle so they meet at this location. On the outside, you now have some sides. These are the outside flaps now. You're going to write the quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4 on the outside of the flaps. And make sure they go in these spots here because these are the correct order. When I'm thinking of quadrants, I always think of it making a C. So quadrant 1 would be the first part, and then I'd go into quadrant 2, and then into quadrant 3, and then into quadrant 4. Okay, also when we are writing quadrants, we use Roman numerals. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then notice that the 4 is a 1 and a V. Alright, so once you have those written down, open your page back up, and you will see in the middle it says something on the top. There's your graph in the middle, and then you got your X moves and Y moves on the bottom. So on the top where it says coordinate points are written, I want you to put an X and then a Y. Okay, so the X coordinate is in the first spot, the Y coordinate is in the other spot, and then the origin is located at the point 0, 0. Alright, so then X, so that's the first one, you are going to move right if it is positive, you're going to move left if it is negative. For Y, you're going to move up if it is positive, and you're going to move down if it's negative. Alright, so I've taken the paper and I've separated this out, so find the quadrant 1, that's your upper right one, and we're going to just focus on this one first of all. So looking at the ordered pairs, in order to be in quadrant 1, both numbers need to be positive. You can see all the numbers on the bottom are positive. These are your X numbers, and then all of the numbers on the side are positive, and these are your Y's. So it's going to be a positive, positive, and you know that you're in quadrant 1. Okay, so our first step is to plot A at 2, 3. So what this tells me to do is from the origin, I'm going to go over 2 and then up 3. Okay, you don't need to necessarily make these lines. I just did for the sake of on the screen here. But then you're going to put a dot at that location and then label it with an A. Okay, you can see if you don't put labels on them, because we already have 3 points in this spot, we don't know which one you're referring to. So you always have to make sure you label them with the correct letter. For B, we're going to put that at 1, 4, so that tells us to move right 1 and up 4 from the origin. So we're going to move right 1 and up 4, and now put our dot. Now working backwards, if the question was to say where is it located, it's already on the graph, you have to now pull it off. So in order to get to C, we had to move right 4 and up 2. So we moved right 4 and up 2. To get to D, we moved right 5 and then we moved up 4. So we moved right 5 and up 4. Alright, let's focus on quadrant 2. So if you look in this quadrant, again, this is your X values, these are your Y values. You can see that all your X values are negative and all your Y values are positive. So in order to get into quadrant 2, the X needs to be negative and the Y needs to be positive. So when we're plotting these ones, we're going to plot E at negative 2, 1. So we're going to move left 2 and up 1. So put a dot. For F, we're going to move right 4 and up 3. So put a dot and label that with an F. So now if we're naming, we're going to figure out where G is. in order to get to G, we started at the origin and we moved left 5. So in order to indicate left, we put a negative sign, and then we moved up 1. All right, for H, we had to move left 3, so negative 3, and then we moved up 4, so positive 4. All right, quadrant 3 is next. So again, this is your x values. This is your y values. You can see that all your x values are negative, all your y values are negative. So in order to get into quadrant 3, your x and your y both need to be negative. So let's plot I. I is at -1, -3, so that tells me to move left 1 and then down 3. So I'm going to put a dot and label that with an I. For J, it's at -4, so I'm going to move left 4, -5, so I'm going to move down 5. Put a dot and label it J. Okay, so now if K is already plotted and we want to tell someone how to get to K, from the origin we're going to move left 3, so that's -3. And then we're going to move down 3, so that's a -3 as well. For L, we had to move left 5, so that's -5. And then we had to move down 5, so that's -2. Okay, in our last quadrant, you can see our x values and our y values. In order to get into quadrant 4, all your x values are positive and all your y values are negative. So if we are plotting M is at 2, -4. So that tells us to move right 2 and down 4. So right 2 and down 4. So put a dot and label that with an M. N is at 5, -3. So we're going to move right 5, down 3, put a dot, and label that with an N. Okay, if we're telling someone how to start from the origin and get to the coordinate point P, we're going to tell them to move right 2 and then down 2. So it's going to be +2, -2. And then Q is at +4 and then -5. All right, so looking at your grid, this should be pretty filled in now. I just want you, if you haven't yet, label this with your X and this with your Y. Okay, because anything that is on this line is now considered on the x-axis. Anything on this line is considered on the y-axis. So there's going to be times when you don't end up in a quadrant. So if I asked you which quadrant is point H located, you would tell me 2, since that's the C. We would go 1, 2 to make our C, so we know that's quadrant 2. Okay. However, if you ended up right here on this dot, right on the x-axis, that is no longer in quadrant 2 or quadrant 3. That is on the x-axis. Okay, so I want you to put a dot. Go ahead and put it there. And let's label it as -2, 0. Okay. If you need to write it above it, wherever you need to, wherever you have space. So if it's on the x-axis, the x is going to be filled in. So x-axis has a location for the x value, okay, because you had to move left 2, but now you're not moving up or down, so that's why there's a 0 in the y spot. In order to get onto the y-axis, let's go ahead and put one way up at the top here, and we'll label this. We didn't have to move left or right, so the 0 goes first this time, but we had to move up 5, so the 5 has to go in the second spot. So for the y-axis, we're going to have 0 in the first spot and then 5 in the second spot. So if you were asked if the point was already plotted, okay, there's some questions that come up and it says, state the location. You will not say, especially for the 0, 5, you're not going to say 1 or 2, because remember, here's 1, here's 2. It is not in 1 or 2, it is on the y-axis. Okay, so you have to make that distinction. The only other one that you would have, if it's right in the middle there, that's your origin. So put a dot there. If you haven't written that in yet, you can write origin, because that's 0, 0, meaning you moved left or right 0 and you moved up or down 0. All right, so this is the end. Go ahead and get this taped into your notebook. Thank you.